Today I have with me Mr. Kyle Thompson, who is the host of Undaunted Life, a man's podcast. And guys, I'm going to tell you what, this is the podcast every week when it comes out. It's the highlight of my day. I jump into it. You know, if I'm running, if I'm working out, if I'm driving, doesn't matter. I'm going to listen to Kyle. So Kyle, what's up? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Hey, if that's the highlight of your day, I feel bad for you that my voice in your ear holes is the highlight of your day, but I appreciate the compliment.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. It's really good stuff. So in the show notes, we'll have the links for all you listeners. Go out there and check it out. I mean, it's a really good content, and follow him on social as well. You know, today I wanted to talk to Kyle. He had a devotional that was how to build a godly and manly foxhole. And Kyle, I taught this just recently at our church. It was great. We got a lot out of it. I love the Proverbs 27:17, as that iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And I'm kind of titling this for the line within us, the lion's den. It's not a foxhole, the lion's den for us, because it's a dangerous place for men that we need. And I'm just curious from your standpoint, what inspired you to really get to go there and create this devotional?
Yeah, for anyone that's listened to the podcast for any length of time, or even if you haven't, a good first episode would be episode 104. It's called Your Foxhole. So the thing that's interesting about this is sometimes I'll do episodes and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put all my creative juices into this one episode and it's going to be perfect. I'm such a genius. And then it kind of falls flat or no one really talks about it. Mm-hmm. And then I do other episodes that are like, I put full effort into every episode. I don't mail it in ever. But there's some episodes that I don't think are really going to, capture the attention of the populace. But that one did, Your Foxhole. And I kind of talked about, having those guys, because a lot of men have 6 p.m. friends, but no 3 a.m. friends. So until about 6 p.m., they've got guys in their life that they can call to help them move something, or if they've got a problem. But after that, those guys really aren't available to them. But most guys don't have that guy that they could call at 3 o'clock in the morning, know he's going to answer the phone. He's going to grab his shovel and his gun because he's assuming we're burying a body that's already dead, or we're killing him and burying him or something like that. Right. I'm obviously being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, guys. Don't get too offended. But that's the thing is, it was always in the back of my mind to go into that and elucidate a little bit further. And I did some kind of personal research with my podcast, and I messaged probably about 40 people about, hey, in the last 2 years of the show, is there one episode, or I asked them like, hey, what are 5 or 6 episodes that you just remember off the top of your head? Like, oh, I remember that episode. You may not remember the number. Every single one of them said Your Foxhole, all of them. And I was like, okay, That's not like a hint. That's a bullhorn saying, hey, you need to dive into this a little bit more. And so that's why I did the devotional. And, I was working with YouVersion and that kind of worked out and kind of didn't. And in the middle of working with YouVersion on that, I was just like, okay, this is bigger than the YouVersion platform. This is bigger. And this is not a kind of toot your own horn thing, but it's like, it doesn't matter where it lives. Because I was like trying to develop it because they reached out to me to do another devotional for their site. But it's like, this is something that guys need. Guys don't like to read, so that's why I did it in audio format and just kind of put the notes up there for a lot of other people. But again, there's just this unbelievable urge for churches to do men's programming and not actual men's ministry. Or if they're going to dedicate to men's ministry, it's let's put guys in a circle and make them talk to each other, even though they don't trust one another yet. Right. And which is, that's what women do. And they can do that, and they can sit around for months and just talk about their relationship. But men have to do something together to trust one another. So I wanted to kind of like tease that out a little bit further. No doubt. And
I love the format because it's 7 sessions. We did it over 7 weeks. So from a man's standpoint, you're not committing to, months of a Bible study or things like that. You can condense it down, but it jumps right in and it captured the audience. My demographic for the group that I worked with, I think I had some guys in early 20s all the way up to mid to late 50s. So, and it captured, everybody could relate to it. So that was, so I can totally see why, when you polled them and they said Foxhole, why you lean into that pretty hard. And, so I'm really excited to walk through it. Maybe we can just give our listeners, we'll walk through each session just high level for them to understand, what to expect when you jump into this. Because, I got a ton out of it. So that first session, what makes a godly man? I remember the 2 truths you talked about, and those 10 bullet points really stood out. But what made you want to start there with the godly man concept?
Well, because I can't build anything off of a foundation of anything else. If I'm going to be talking about why men should be in actual biblical community with one another, we have to define what a godly man is. And because there really is not a more effective way to jump off than that. And a lot of guys as well, they're confused as to what a godly man is. And I talk about this on some of the later sessions and on the podcast as well. We think a godly man is a man that never curses, a man that never does wrong, a man that wears really, really pleated pants to church and says, hey, I'm praying for you, brother, whether he is or not. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad outright. I'm just saying that's not what a godly man is. And so that's why I spent time kind of going to scripture and saying, like, here's just a bunch of tidbits that I can throw into you that make a lot of sense, that would be helpful for you to understand what a godly man is. And then we kind of go further there, but there wasn't any other place I could start, really. Like, I couldn't just start with the Foxhole. Like, here's what the Foxhole is, because I had to get you there. I had to kind of lead you there. Like, just imagine, I'm trying to think of something complicated. Like, a lot of guys out here listening to this might be power lifters. So imagine trying to do a clean and jerk, right? That is a very complicated, multi-step lift that if you do something wrong, you could really, really hurt yourself. And so imagine coming in, and unfortunately there are gyms out there that do this, and I don't advocate it. The first day they bring you in, it's like, we're going to do clean and jerks and we're going to do it to failure because we're all wearing headbands and we should, or whatever. Or some dude on Twitter did it, so now I'm going to do it. But you should be teaching people very standard, basic things about this lift and build upon it and build upon it and build upon it. And then one day you could do that lift with a lot of weight on the bar and not feel like you're going to blow your spine into pieces. Right. And so it's kind of the same thing with this. It's the best place to start because it was the most simple place to start. It had to be the foundation.
No doubt, no doubt. And those foundational qualities, I remember looking around when I was teaching it, and so many of the guys they were writing them down. And they were, and I at the end of it, I was like, guys, now, how many of those boxes do you check, on the day in, day out? I mean, that's the resilience that you talk about, pushing yourself every day. So that really opened up so much good conversation just to get them going and to get them thinking from that foundation.
Yeah, and for the most part, a lot of guys, they just need a little bit of a push, just a slight push. And again, it's kind of, if they're not used to that group, they need something to attach themselves to as well. And so that's the other thing that I think would be most important for guys to understand and recognize is that it's not always going to be, it's not always going to make sense immediately. But part of the reason is because the people that are trying to talk to you and the people that are trying to help you through something are not doing a great job of priming you for what it is that you need to do. So again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I just tried to prime people in an appropriate way so that they could connect with the content.
Loved it. Now the second day, I'll grab this. I went out and I got this one, Kyle. So I got the Fearless book.
All right.
Excellent. Pounded through it. It was a great book. So Kyle, day 2, you talked about what makes a manly man. We really talked about Adam Brown, Fearless, what's going on there. You brought in a lot from 2 Timothy and Paul, to his letter there. So I'm just curious, what made you go from what makes a godly man to what makes a manly man? Why that transition?
Yeah. So obviously, being a godly man is the basis and the foundation for what you're having to do and what you're having to build upon. We also need to talk about what makes a manly man, because there's a lot of cultural manifestations of what a man is. There's a lot of cultural suggestions and caricatures of what a man is. And that's why we talked about our definition at Undaunted Life, that a man is a male that cultivates spiritual, mental, and physical resilience on a daily basis. And I hate that I have to say a man is a male, but here we are in 2021 or 2022, whenever this comes out. That's just the world we're apparently living in. And in that devotional, I don't want to, kind of go into all the content, but, we get into detail about spiritual, mental, and physical, why those 3 things and kind of what all that means. And the story of Adam Brown, like if your listeners haven't read the book Fearless by Eric Blem, what exactly are you doing with your life? Like, that is the most important book that I've ever read. We have a book list on our website called the 100 Books Every Modern Christian Man Should Read list. That's clearly on it. But that's my number 1 book, right? That's my favorite book of all time, because it's the ultimate story of resilience. It's the ultimate story of redemption, redemption through Christ, and the ultimate story of sacrifice. As most people know, he died, running towards the sound of danger with his brothers over in Afghanistan. And so it's a tough pill to swallow, even in light of what we've seen even this summer with what happened in Afghanistan. But he's a man that I feel like was very spiritually, mentally, and physically resilient, and he kind of had to be. Just one quick story on him. He actually broke all of his fingers almost off of one of his hands because they were riding in the middle of the desert in their Humvees, and there's a lot of dust everywhere, and they actually hit another American Humvee, and his hand was out the window as the Humvee rolled over and crushed his hand. One of my buddies was actually the corpsman on the ground that day, and he helped basically glue his hands back together in the field. And so he had to learn how to shoot with his off hand, which is really difficult for anyone that's shot with their off hand, with their non-dominant hand. But he also, during a training regimen, he took a simunition to his eye, right? A simulated round to the eyeball, and he lost the eyeball. So now he's having to shoot with his off hand and his off eye, and he passes the world's hardest sniper school, and he made it through green team screening to become a member of SEAL Team 6 or DevGru. And I mean, just for a guy to be able to do those things, it's absolutely incredible. But then also you look at Timothy as he's passing over and kind of teaching, Paul is kind of teaching Timothy kind of what he wants him to do and how he wants him to take over. And, Paul is in spiritual, mental, and physical anguish during this time period, but he shows such tremendous resilience. And it's like, that's what a manly man is.
Right.
And so some people think manly men is, drinking whiskey and eating beef jerky and, driving 4-wheel drive trucks. And here's the thing. I like all those things. Right? Like I'm very typically masculine in that I really enjoy all those things. But at the same time, I don't look at those things as reasons for why I'm a man.
Right.
It's like, someone's like, hey, Kyle, why are you a man? Because I do jujitsu. Because I like eating steak from animals that I've killed. Like, that's fine, but it's not real. And so culturally, that's what we all kind of slip into and step into quite a bit, but it's just not real. So that's why I really wanted to get into that part of it.
I love that transition from the godly to the manly. So Kyle, we'll take a quick break, then we're going to jump back into day 3. At The Lion Within Us, we discuss wealth a lot, and our sponsor at Investing for Beginners provides great resources for those wanting to take their knowledge of investing to the next level. Their monthly research e-letter is the best way to learn about the market and apply insight to begin growing your wealth. The newsletter tracks the founder's journey of managing a portfolio and shares how the decisions are made. For the beginning investor, this could be a great way to learn how to get started with investing from a company that is putting their money where their mouth is. I've been subscribing to their e-letter for quite some time, and it's something I look forward to every month, and I've learned a ton. They are a conservative group with an emphasis on a margin of safety. The Lion Within Us listeners can receive 15% off the monthly e-letter by visiting thelionwithin.us/IFB, that's Investing for Beginners, and using the promo code LION at checkout. That's thelionwithin.us/IFB, and use promo code LION to receive 15% off your monthly research e-letter. So day 3, you combined them, which I loved it. It was the crunch, godly and manly, and it really made you think. And I loved how you tied Nehemiah in there and the story of what was accomplished there in that Bible story. So was that just a natural way you were thinking of? Well, we talked about godly, we talked about manly. Let's bring the worlds together.
Yeah, I'm a narrative builder, just kind of by nature. Like I don't have like any training in story writing or any of those types of things. But with the entire 7-day series, I'm wanting to take you on a journey, right? So we had to set the foundation with what is a godly man. Then we have to say what is a manly man. But then we have to bring those two things together because most men will probably be surprised by day 3 that those two things can coalesce and become one.
Right.
I know for me, I became a Christian in high school, and the men I saw at my church, First Baptist West in Lawton, Oklahoma, they weren't the manliest men so if again, in my kind of small pea brain at that time, these are just not men that I would have considered to be very, very manly. All the manly men were out doing something else on Sunday mornings. They weren't hanging out inside the church. And that's the paradigm that a lot of people carry. That if you want to be manly, that happens outside the church. And the church has done men no favors because the church is very favorable to effeminate men and to women. And the modern church, the way that the preaching is, the way that the sermons are constructed, the overemphasis on the Lamb of God as opposed to focusing at all on the Lion of Judah, the music that is selected being very effeminate, singing to this deity that you can't see, that is a male that you somehow need to embrace close to your bosom like he's your boyfriend. It's just a problem for most men. And so for here, that's with this lesson, I really wanted to kind of break through that and using the story of Nehemiah. So for your listeners, like reading the first 4 chapters of Nehemiah, this was a very godly and manly man. And I go into a lot of detail there. But again, man, for most guys, they don't see that as even a possibility that they're able to be godly and manly at the same time. And I wanted to destroy that paradigm.
I loved it. I mean, because you can be both, right? And that was the big thing. That Jesus is not your boyfriend. I brought that up. I got a big chuckle out of the guys. But then we start talking a little bit about the worship music and what that looks like. And trying to we were doing some diagnosis on why are there so many moms showing up with their kids and the dad's not there. And a lot of it is kind of, that's the way the church services are set up, the structure. Yeah. It's just not grabbing and pulling them. So I love how you went there because I think we need to be talking about that more and pulling out these examples, and I think that will resonate with more men to okay, this is what it's about. But also the churches have to embrace it, right?
Yeah, so I was actually on a debate show over in the UK here recently, and the guy that was on opposite me, I was supposed to be debating these two feminists, and both of them dropped out of the debate. Which hey, I wouldn't want to debate me either, especially whenever their points are wrong.
Right.
But at the same time, like this particular guy was very much so on the egalitarian side of things. There's not really a difference between men and women. They should have the same roles inside the church. Everything's la la la. We don't care about what the Bible says because it makes us feel icky. And I'm very much so on the complementarian side, where I think that men and women are equal. We've just been given different roles. So like 2 + 2 can equal 4, but so can 3 + 1, right? And so it's like we're equal. We just do things differently. And so the point that I was making there is that men will go where they're needed. And if they realize they're not needed somewhere, they're just going to go wherever they want to be.
Right.
And so if they show up at church every week and it's clear that they're not needed and perhaps not even like wanted in any way, shape, or form, they're not going to come anymore. Right. And so these churches are lamenting, like, why aren't the men showing up? Is it that we don't have enough chili cook-offs? Is that we don't have enough 7 a.m. Saturday morning prayer breakfast? Is it that the pancakes are too cold? Like, no, that's not the point. It's that everything you're doing as a church is repelling them and you don't care, right? You don't care, because every time that we open up for volunteers, we get 100% of the volunteers we want, and they're 80% female. And you're just like, well, we got all the volunteers we want. And you're not thinking about what are the issues that we have this overwhelming abundance of women that want to do things inside the church, and the men are nowhere to be found.
Right.
The reason the men are nowhere to be found is because you're repelling them. It's because they've realized you don't need them. Perhaps you don't even want them there. So they're going to go do something else. They're going to go to the shooting range. They're going to go to the driving range. They're going to go prepare for a fantasy football draft. They're going to go and, mow the lawn. They're going to do something else on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday afternoons, evenings, whatever. And they're not going to do anything with the church. And it's going to affect their overall understanding of who God is and the Godhead and, who Jesus is in his totality as grace and truth, lion and lamb, because you keep sending the message that you don't want them there.
Right. And it's so critical. I mean, as I look through our church with the youth, particularly the youth age boys, they need to see godly men, strong, godly, manly men in there. So that, who else are they going to learn it from? They're not going to learn it from the women that are leading those groups. They need to be shoulder to shoulder with men who are embracing godliness and manliness and can teach them, right? So, to me, that just jumps out.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I think I may have said this earlier. I either said it off air or we said it when we were talking, but a lot of churches just think, all right, we're going to get men together. We're going to bring some speaker, some, ex-NFL football player that used to do cocaine off of hookers' butts, and now he's a saved man, and everything's great, and now Jesus has got him, and you should listen to him, and now let's all break out into groups of 5. Here's your list of 12 questions that we're going to go over the next 30 minutes, and let's chat it up.
Right.
It's not a horrible way of doing things, but it's not a great way of doing things because, again, men don't connect that way. Mm-hmm. Men connect shoulder to shoulder before they connect eyeball to eyeball.
Right.
Okay? Women connect eyeball to eyeball from the beginning. There's a new John Eldredge book that he released with his son here recently. It's called A Year with Men, and it goes into how you can do 365 days with the same men's group and all that. It's a great resource. But one of the points he made in there is that women can and will base their entirety of their relationship on the relationship. And so they will get together to talk about their relationship, to talk about their friendship. And that is the center point for what they do. Men don't typically like to connect that way.
Right.
And I take it back to kind of hunter-gatherer cultures. I'm Choctaw Indian, so I kind of have this in my blood. But, if you're all sitting around, they're not sitting around that morning at the campfire before the hunt, talking to each other about how much they love each other and how much they appreciate one another. And this is what we're going to do today. I bet you there's a lot of silence.
Right.
I bet you there's a lot of stoicism. I bet there's a lot of preparation. And then when they're in the field for the hunt, even more so, less talking, maybe no talking at all. Maybe it's just motions. Maybe it's just eye contact or something like that. When do they connect? They've connected after they've taken down the beast.
Right.
Now they can, start, ribbing one another. Now they can, throw the, part of the liver at the guy, like, look, you got blood all over your face. Like, then you can start kind of being guys, but it's only after you've earned that circle. It's only after you've earned that ability to be together. I talked to this group in Tulsa, years ago. And I come up and do my thing. I'm kind of a burn it down and walk away type of a speaker. But then after I was done speaking, they said, all right, guys, get in your groups. And I was like, some of these guys are here for the first time. You just stick them in a group. They're like, yeah, we just put them in a group and have them jump into discussion. I was like, how's that working for you? And like, they've been doing it for a long time. And I kind of have a critical eye for most things. That's, I guess, a gift and a curse to a certain degree. But it's like, whenever they kind of gave it back to me after the groups broke, I was like, guys, you got to earn those groups, by the way. Like, just walking into a group and it's like, oh, you're in this group because you live Like you're alive, you have blood running through your veins and oxygen going through it. Like, so you're just going to be in this group now. It's like, no, you need to earn that group. And again, that kind of comes back to the whole Foxhole series as well.
Absolutely does. Absolutely. And so important. I love that how you tie into earning. Guys want to feel like that they've actually accomplished something, and then the church needs to find ways and really embrace and lean into that, and get outside the box. I feel like we so often. My wife tells me all the time, "Don't put God in a box." So we need inside of our church. Let's take him out and let's let guys be guys. So when we got to day 4, in walks Jesus, and I loved it because the question that you posed, was Jesus a manly man? That just got everybody just sitting back like, really? The way I prepped this is I taught my kids. So I would go through, I'd write my show notes, I put the slide deck together, and then I would actually do it as a family devotional. And I have all girls. My question was, all right, who do you think of as a manly man? Like The Rock or Stone Cold or all these different types of wrestlers and things like that. I'm like, Jesus didn't make your list. So was Jesus. And then they're like, well, we didn't think of it like that. So that led a great discussion. And it coupled right over into the Bible study I led with the man. So, what led you down the Jesus, a manly man, rabbit trail there?
Well, you can't talk about what a godly man is, what a manly man is, and not end up was Jesus a manly man. You can't not end up there. And that's kind of the other thing, is the way that modernity describes Jesus, talks about Jesus, paints Jesus, depicts Jesus, is not in an appropriate way. He's always depicted as this, fair-skinned, light-featured, almost dirty blonde-haired white guy. It's like he was a Middle Eastern Jew. Right. He was a rough dude.
Right.
I mean, his hands were probably calloused up and maybe even broken his fingers every now and then while he was working on his projects. Like, this was not this soft, supple guy that was easily approachable and like, oh, he's just so cute. And he's carrying a lamb at all times and, kissing people on their noses and telling all the women how great their hair looks. It's like, that's not the guy. And think about how men think. We don't want to follow a guy like that into battle.
Right.
Right? We want to follow Teddy Roosevelt. We want to follow George Washington. We want to follow these guys like that. Those are the guys that we want to, throw our lot in with those types of people, but we would never describe Jesus that way. And so, but that's the thing is I would challenge anyone listening to this. The next time you're in a coffee shop, hopefully not Starbucks, they support Planned Parenthood, but you're just in a random place, maybe you're in the, Black Rifle coffee place. Walk up to 3 guys and say, hey, I'm doing a little experiment. I'm doing a little thought experiment. If I could just steal 30 seconds of your time. If you can think of the manliest men that you know of, right? Whether you know them personally or not, whether they actually existed or not, maybe it could even be someone from a television show, maybe they're alive or dead, doesn't matter. Who are the manliest men you know? And the answers you're going to get are going to be, Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy, and you might get people from history like a Jack London, or you might get I don't know, you may get a George Washington or a Teddy Roosevelt. You're gonna get these caricatures. You're gonna get the Clint Eastwood Western characters. You're gonna get Rambo. You're gonna get those types of guys. I would almost guarantee you're not going to have a single person, no matter where you are, even if it's a coffee shop at your church, to say Jesus. You're not going to get that. Right. It's not even in our paradigm to think of him as a manly man. And I think that is wickedly and wildly inappropriate, because he is the most complete masculine man specimen possible. Right. But we don't think of him in terms like that. And so that's why on that particular one, I get into the fact that he's grace and truth. He's lamb and lion, not 50-50, one and the other. He's 100% both. How the modern church really doesn't like to deal with that very much. We don't really like the scriptures where Jesus seems angry, where he seems biting. We don't really want to deal with those because it doesn't make him seem very Christ-like, right? Because he's being mean and judgmental of people. I talk about him clearing the temple. And, since I've released that series, I've done a little bit more research. There's actually a school of thought that's fairly substantial that Jesus didn't just clear the temple once, he cleared it twice. And so this is a guy that made a whip, came back and cleared people out of the temple using violence and righteous anger to clear the temple out because they were violating the dictates of his God, of his father. And so that's one of those things that for a lot of men, you should really get into that. Like, some people are like, if I only had to do one day of the devotional, which one would I do? It's like, well, I didn't build it that way. But day number 4, is Jesus a manly man? Because that's where I challenge a lot of the paradigms that people have that unfortunately have been created by the modern church.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you said, this is the guy that, basically Jesus walked in, he yelled and screamed and woke up a dead guy. That's a manly man, right? I mean, that's not some meek little character there. So I loved how those first 4 days really walked through kind of framing up who we need to be, like the model. It shows us the perfect model, and then you transition to the Foxhole. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll jump into day 5 and the rest of the Foxhole series. We are proud to be sponsored by FMG Financial Hope. They provide financial coaching support, and Lions recognize that wealth is a core area that we all want to focus on. Their coaching process gives you a trained set of eyes that will be focused on 3 things. First, understanding your situation. Second, providing information that is specifically tailored to help you. And third, they inject hope. Good coaches teach the fundamentals of the game, but great coaches motivate. And winning with finances is possible for everyone, and FMG Financial Hope can get you there. So if you find yourself tired of running out of money before the month ends, never getting ahead with finances, or if you're just tired of living paycheck to paycheck, FMG Financial Hope can provide the support you need to start your path towards financial freedom. Visit thelionwithin.us/FMG to learn more. Day 5, what is a foxhole? And the whole definition, so at this point, I guess you're trying to transition. For me, when I was teaching it, that was the transition point to get the guys thinking a little bit more about themselves and the people around them. You've built a good foundation on what to look for, and some of those qualities. Now you kind of start laying that deeper roots of the foxhole concept itself.
Yeah, Foxhole doesn't really make sense unless you have the first 4 days. So what makes a godly man? What makes a manly man? Can you be both godly and manly? And was Jesus a manly man? Mm-hmm. If I start with Foxhole, we never get there, right? I don't really feel like you would need to keep going. So the first 4 are kind of like, can be standalone, but they really dovetail into what you could consider part 2, which is days 4, 5, and 6, or 5, 6, and 7 of the devotional. But for us, our definition of a foxhole is a group of men that constantly push each other to cultivate spiritual, mental, and physical resilience daily. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to our definition of a man. A man is a male that cultivates spiritual, mental, and physical resilience daily. So it's having those men around you that are constantly pushing you to do that and doing that themselves. And I go into that episode, and again, I don't want to get into too many of the specifics because I want your guys to kind of experience it for themselves. But I talk about what a foxhole is not. Some people think, my fraternity guys from back in college that I see once every couple of years, that's my foxhole. Or, the guys from work that, we only ever talk about work things, that's my foxhole. Or, one of my cousins that I really, really enjoy that I haven't seen in 5 years. Those people are not consequential to your life. Mm-hmm. And so, I think I talked about in there about how the 4 men that were at my side when I got married, I don't have great relationships with those guys today. And it's not because, we had a falling out, we got in a fight or, something like that. We just grew apart. One guy lives somewhere else. I don't even know how many kids he has. One guy I may see once a year. One guy I see 2 or 3 times a year. And one guy's kind of still in my life in a relational standpoint. But that's the thing is, those people are not consequential to my life anymore. Doesn't mean I don't have love for them. Doesn't mean I wouldn't drop what I was doing to go and help them or their families. But at the same time, you need men in your life that are consequential to you. But I talk about kind of the 3 a.m. friend versus a 6 p.m. friend, that concept. I talk about the I'm on my way friend. I talked about a story about whenever my 6-week-old son was doing emergency surgery, I had to rush him to the ER in the middle of the night. And a guy from my foxhole called me and said, I'm on my way to your house. I'm going to take care of the dogs. Will you just let me know how to get in? I'll figure it out from there. Right. This is a guy that didn't say, hey, brother, I'm praying for you. Man, that really stinks. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Because guess what, guys? When someone's in the middle of a dire situation, but a potential life and death situation, and then you ask them, is there anything I can do for you? You've just added something to their to-do list. Oh, I got to think of something for Johnny to do. Right. Oh, here, let me stop what I'm doing. Let me stop praying that my son won't die. Right. My firstborn won't die so that I can make you feel better by saying, oh yeah, can you go get my mail? Sorry, I'm not interested in that. Like that doesn't help me. It's the I'm on my way friend. I'm going to do the thinking and I'm going to go make it happen. Right? All I need from you, brother, is let me know how to get in the house because I'll break a damn window and I'll replace it before you get back home. But I'd rather not do that. So can you tell me where the extra key lives? But that's kind of the thing for most guys is they don't have that. They don't even have a paradigm for that because guess what? They lost their best friends when they got out of the military. They lost their best friends after their last, game, their senior year playing football. Like they just don't have that friend group anymore. Like the guys that used to get together in the dorm room to play video games every Thursday night, whatever that is. And now they're 35 years old, 45 years old, and they don't have a group of guys around them, and they're lamenting it. It's like, part of that's a you problem, brother.
Right.
It's like you're not developing these people around you to where you can have those types of relationships. So that's why I think those last three parts of that devotional are so important, is because I'm giving the guys not only the definitions of how they can do these things, but more specifics as to how they can pull it off.
No doubt. I mean, perfect dovetail into the sixth session. Do men need a foxhole? And Kyle, hey man, Wild at Heart, I went out and I got that one too. So I mean, you gave some good resources there, and I read that passage out of John Eldridge, because you actually read that in the devotional, and that it was such impactful, and it got me thinking. I wanted to do the same thing for those guys, and I'll be honest, I had read the book, and that part never jumped out to me until I went through your devotional. So hats off to you there, and I guess your point about men never need to be alone. We're not built to be alone. We're built to be with other men. So, just curious, first of all, great job on making that tie there and the impact that it has on other men.
Well, the thing is I think I made the point in that one. I can't remember which exact day it was. I'm pretty sure it was day 6, but it's like, should we have a foxhole? Mm-hmm. Yes. Why? Because Jesus had one. Right. So I talk about the apostles that he called and how he called them, and how it was specific that he did that, and how he kind of created that. Because some people that are trying to build a foxhole, they're like, okay, we're going to build a foxhole and let just anybody in it. It's like, I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing, which I get into detail that on the devotional as well.
Right.
But if you're in a foxhole, you're not in isolation, because you're doing life with people.
Right.
You're accountable to people, and not in the accountability group sense, but literally, like, I think I may have even said the example in there. Sorry, I keep saying that, but I did this. I wrote this content about a year and a half ago. But if I were to say something off color to my wife, like let's say I'm out to dinner and it's 3 or 4 of my foxhole guys and their spouses, and we're all having dinner or something like that. And I'm kind of a sarcastic guy. I like to kind of rib a little bit, and every now and then I do that to my wife. She's not one of the guys. It can hurt her feelings. Everybody has probably been there. But let's say I say something kind of unnecessarily biting to one of my to my spouse, and I'm in front of some of my foxhole guys. I would fully expect that one of my foxhole guys would, probably on the way out to the car, something like that, kind of easily pull me aside, snatch me up by my shirt and say, brother, you hurt your wife. You wounded her when you said what you did at the dinner table. I don't think you did it maliciously. I think you did it to try and be funny. It's not funny, and you're not going to talk to her that way, especially not in front of me. You need to take care of that on the ride home. I love you. See you later. Have a good night. That's different, right? That's putting some chips in the center of the table. And most guys just go along to get along. They don't want to challenge anybody. Oh, I don't want to judge. And hey, to each their own. And my daddy told me once. No. In those moments, when you see one of your brothers screwing up, it is incumbent upon you to try and fix that.
Right.
And so many guys are scared of making their friends mad, or offending them, or feeling like they're being judged or something like that. And the thing is in most of these situations, the worst case scenario is that you get punched in the mouth. Right. That is the worst case scenario. Right. And it's like, if you've never been punched in the mouth, you should try it. It's not that bad. Like it gets a little addicting at times as well. And so it's just one of those things for most guys, is I'm trying to get them out of their own heads, where the be all end all of their relationship is, what 17-year-old just signed to play for their favorite college football team and what their favorite IPA is this month. That's not something that's going to lead to those deep level relationships, because guess what? At 3:00 in the morning, when your world is falling apart, it does not matter what a high school kid has done or the school he chose to go play cornerback for. That's not going to come into the account. So you really need to set up a life with guys around you that are connecting with you on a much deeper level.
No doubt. And I mean, that was such an impactful conversation that we had, just talking about those attributes and what's important, the challenging each other. And then that led us to the day 7, building and maintaining. And I tell you what, Kyle, when we went through this, there was a lot of looking at the ground, because I think the guys were looking at some of the attributes you called out, and they got to thinking, because my challenge to them was the way you challenged in your devotion is, do you see these attributes in yourself? Right. You have to be a godly man first before you can go out, and a manly man before you can go out and start building these foxholes. So this was a challenging lesson, when we really walked through some of those parts. And did you design it to be that way, to really get the thoughts going, to get people looking at themselves and the people around them?
Yeah. The thing about it is men aren't crappy today because they've been challenged too much. Right. It's because they haven't been challenged at all. Right. You know,
Right.
we built these insulated lives where we're never being told we're wrong. We're never being told we're a failure, where we're doing things wrong, but we're not letting anybody in behind the curtain to kind of see what could possibly go wrong. That's the lives that we're living. And so I'm glad there was a little bit of navel gazing in that room. Right. Because if you look at my list of things that a Foxhole guy is, or characteristics and all that, and you're like, man, I check all the boxes, dude, sign up to be the next Christ, because you're crushing it, brother. Like you're absolutely,
Right.
You don't need me. Like, why are you listening to this devotional? Why are you listening to this podcast? You don't need any of that. You got it all figured out, brother. But again, you're never going to be that guy that's got all the boxes checked at all times, right? You're constantly going to ebb and flow. And I talk about spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. There are a lot of guys that crush it at one of those categories.
Right.
You got Gym Bro guy, right? That can run a marathon and deadlift 600 pounds. Like he's Gym Bro guy, but he hasn't read a book since high school, right? And so it's like, bro, your brain's falling apart, but your pecs sure do look nice. And then you got the other guy that's like a bookworm, but you know, if they had to sprint like to the end of the neighborhood to save the life of a child, that child's gone and probably them. They're probably gonna have a heart attack on the way and cease to exist. And for a lot of guys, the moment they feel like they don't measure up, it's like, oh, they want to take their ball and go home. And I'm like, no, I'm calling you to something better than that. And the reason why I'm calling you something better to that is because God created you to be something better than that. This is easy. This isn't like your Sunday school answer, guys. It's like, oh, if you're having trouble in this area and you can't fix it, let another guy get under the bar and help you carry the weight for a little bit until you can get back on your feet, until you can figure out how you can take care of a certain aspect of your life. And that's why I kind of broke it down like as tangibly and granularly as I could. You know, you need to identify Foxhole guides, you need to refine your Foxhole, and then you need to maintain it. This is going to require work. Again, we live in this society where Americans, we're like the biggest consumers, I believe, of self-help content and kind of this new agey, believe in yourself, you can do it content and all that. The problem is that's not real life.
Right.
The problem is you keep reading the next book and you're just as jacked up as you were after you read the last book. Right. But you're going to keep spending $24.99 on the next book by the next guy that's going to definitely help you. It's going to help you definitely figure things out. And we don't just get to work. Right. A lot of guys theorize about what it would be like if they got in shape. You know, they get ready to get in shape. Right. You know, they're 50 pounds overweight. They haven't worked out in a long time. You know, they're tired of buying new pants. They want to kind of maybe fit back into some of those old pants. And they're going to read blogs about running. They're going to read, you know, studies about the best time of year to run and the best types of shoes. And they're going to go to Red Coyote or whatever store, and they're going to, you know, run on a treadmill for 30 seconds while they take video of their feet to see if they need to get supinating shoes or pronating shoes. And they do all this research. And you know what they never do?
Pound the pavement.
They never run. They never just run. They never just put on shoes of any kind and hit the pavement and run.
That's right.
And that's what most guys do in relationships. They're like, oh, I don't have any friends. I guess I'll go back to looking at porn and jerking off. Or, oh, I don't have any friends. I don't have any guys around me. Oh, I guess I'll go do something else. They focus on other things that they can control where they feel like they're the master of their domain.
Right.
And then they lament how they've ended up where they're ending up. Right. And I can't stand it. The physical thing is the easiest one to see, because if somebody's not cultivating physical resilience, you can see that. Right. There's very few bad-bodied people. Right? You know, for every Daniel Cormier or Tyson Fury, these dad bod guys that are absolute BAs, there's 100 guys that are just fat and lazy, right? They eat too much and move too little. And so that's the easy one to look at. And I'm kind of getting off on a tangent there, but the whole thing, kind of bringing it back to the whole Foxhole concept, it requires work of you.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell you anything right now that you haven't heard before, but I'm going to say it in my own voice. Anything that's worth accomplishing is going to be difficult.
Right.
Right? Like any book that's going to give you that tangible knowledge that could shift the paradigm of your life, it's going to be difficult to get through. You might have to reread a page or two, right? Anything that's physically worth accomplishing, whether it's winning a jiu-jitsu tournament or competing, you know, finishing a 50K or doing a triathlon or something like that, it's going to suck. It's going to require resilience, the ability to bounce back, and also spiritually. God may allow Satan, because Satan doesn't have power. He has the amount of power God allows him to have.
Right.
God may allow Satan, which is weird for people to even hear it that way, to challenge you in certain ways so that he can bring you through it and make you better, because he's got another task for you down the road that you're not ready for, brother. That's why I tell people that you always have to be ready. And the one big pushback, and I'll kind of throw it back to you, because now it's like turning into my own podcast here, but the big pushback I have, like, guys, if they push back on any of this, they push back on the physical stuff. They're like, so you're saying if you don't have a six-pack, you can't be a good Christian? And they think they're making a great point. I'm like, that's not the point I'm making. But can you imagine if God had something for you to do for him and his kingdom that required physicality and he had to wait for you to go and train, think about Nehemiah, right? He didn't say, hey guys, we need to rebuild the walls of the city and the gates and everything like that. But before that, we're going to do a 90-day, we're going to do P90X. We're going to get ready and we're going to take our soft hands and make them calloused, and we're going to prepare and we're going to do this. Or in here, we're going to do a 3-week course on how to hold, a shovel in your right hand and a sword in your left hand. That's not what happened. It was, we're getting to work and we're starting at dawn. Hope you're ready. So that's why I tell guys all the time, and again, God may not, I just think about, I think about all these ridiculous scenarios. It's like, if someone called me right now and said, Kyle, I broke my leg. I'm supposed to run a 5K for charity in the morning. Can you please come and do it? Well, I can do that because I'm prepared to do that. Hey, I'll step in for you, brother. And what if somebody at the finish line doesn't know Christ and they're dying and I'm helping them over to the table to get water and a banana, and then we strike up a conversation and we talk about their childhood and how they didn't think they could ever believe in a God, and we have that conversation. Let's say that person ends up accepting Christ. Or let's say I just put a rock in their shoe, a figurative rock in their shoe about Christ and about God and about, how a world can be created by an omniscient, observer and creator of all things. And down the road, they accept Christ. Again, I couldn't say to that person on the initial phone call, man, I haven't ran in about 6 months, brother. I don't really think I can do it, right? Think of the opportunities you miss just because you weren't ready.
That's right. We have to be ready. And I'll tell you what, it's going through this. This was a convicting devotional. It showed areas in my life that I need to work on. And I think that's the purpose. That's why you built this. You're trying to identify, like you said, none of us are Christ, but we got areas we need to work on: physical, mental, and spiritual resilience. I mean, there's areas that we really need to dive into. And I tell you one thing, Kyle, that going through it, this was a hard one to grapple on. Where do I prioritize time for, the physical thing? You got it. I mean, I definitely put that in every day. I did a 5K this morning. You just run. So I mean, you hit the pavement. Spiritually, I feel like that's where most guys, kind of get lax. And, I'll read my Bible tomorrow. And tomorrow always turns into the next day and the next day and the next day. And all because the world puts so many things in front of us from a schedule standpoint. I mean, you have small kids, or a small one. I think you have one on the way. I have 3 daughters, and they're getting to that point where they're playing sports. And they're doing all these different things, which are great. But it gets your calendar so busy. And I think Satan, a lot of times, he uses the tool of busyness to pull us away from what's important from a spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, because we're doing all these good things for our family, but are we really, making sure we're staying sharp as men? Because we have to lead our families, man. Nobody else is going to do it for us.
Well, let me actually hop in there as well. So guys, you've heard the Fearless book, Wild at Heart. So I'm going to add another book to it. It's a book called Family Shepherds by Vodi Bakum. So it's a book Vodi wrote back in 2011, but he's basically talking about a lot of things that you just brought up, to where it's just like most men are spiritual thermometers, not thermostats. I don't think he actually says it in that way, but it's like most guys are just getting the temperature of the room to see how much they can fit into the crazy schedules that they've allowed for themselves. And they're not dictating terms to their situation. They're allowing their situation to rule them. And so if you're called to be the spiritual leader of your household, and yet you don't have the stones to say, you know what, we're not signing up for fall baseball this year. Why? Because we've been in back-to-back-to-back things for the entire year, and we've been missing out on church and apologizing to your kids. Kids, I have not been leading this family in a spiritual way. I've prioritized things that were outside the church, that were outside of Christ, and we're going to reset. As the Thompsons, we're going to reset. As the Joneses, we're going to reset. As the whoever's, we're going to hit a reset button. And think about the life lesson that you just taught your kids there, because you know what they're not going to remember? That fall baseball season. Right. When they're later in life, considering for your daughters the type of man that they want to marry, they're like, what's going to make their hearts go pitter patter? What's going to make them flutter into the next room? Is it, their 25-year-old man boy boyfriend that's like, yeah, back when I was 16, I played fall baseball and it was so good and I hit so many home runs and oh my God, I'm so awesome? Or is it going to be the guy that said, man, my dad, when I was 16 years old, I really wanted to play fall baseball because I wanted to, prepare to get to college and, be a baseball player, and I wanted to get those extra reps and those extra at-bats. But man, he hit the reset button on our family so that we could realign spiritually, and that has changed my life for forever. I'll never forget that. Yeah. Again, I just pulled that example out of my butt, but it's most guys don't have what it takes to do that. They're not equipped. And with Undaunted Life, our entire mission is equipping men to push back darkness. That's part of the darkness. Your schedule is darkness. When you look at it and you see all these different colors and no gaps and no space, and you're like, man, I have no idea why I feel exhausted all the time. It's like, I do. You don't even have to pay me to sit on my couch for me to tell you. It's you're doing too many things and you're not prioritizing the things that you know matter. But again, God's kind of the constant. God will always be there. God will be there whenever we lose our job or when there's a tornado or when one of our family members is sick. But for the most part, we just put them on the shelf. And when we need them, we pull them off the shelf, blow the dust off him and say, rub his lamp like he's a genie. Hey, can you give me this great stuff? Because Joel Osteen said.
Right. That's right. That's right. It's unreal. And I mean, I tell you what, such an impactful message there, Kyle. We'll definitely put that link in the show notes for listeners. Check out that other book as well. Because taking a position like that's a challenge right there. You just convicted me right there. And maybe I need to look at the challenge when we finish our next season. We're in the middle of basketball right now. Maybe it's time to pump the brakes a little bit. And it takes a manly spiritual leader to be able to do that. But it could be the right move that you guys that are listening need to make. So Kyle, this has been phenomenal. I can't tell you enough, this How to Build a Godly and Manly Foxhole. Unbelievable content. How can people find you? Where do you want them to go to learn more about Undaunted Life, support you, things like that? Because we definitely want to do that at the Line Within Us.
Yeah, I know you have all the stuff in the show notes, but guys, our website is just www.undaunted.life. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere, you can find Undaunted Life, a man's podcast. But the big thing for us and kind of what we do is we've given away, since 2017, we've given away hundreds of hours worth of podcast content, hundreds of hours worth of devotional content, I guess, all told and all put together. And we don't sell anything other than t-shirts, which we make like $5 or $6 off a t-shirt, and every time shipping goes up, we make less money. That's not why we sell t-shirts, but the only way we're able to sustain what we're doing is through donations. And so we have a lot of guys that have hopped in on either one-time basis or even a monthly basis to say, they looked at their budgets. They're like, man, I spent $50 at the cigar shop last month. Man, I spent $100 taking clients out to dinner. I spent this much money on that. But they want to help equip men around the globe to push back darkness, and that's one way to do it. I mean, this year, our podcast has exploded in listenership, but also we've doubled the amount of podcasts we're putting out. We put out another devotional. We're going to be putting out more next year. The only way we're able to pull that off is if guys support us, and so we would encourage guys on our website. It's undaunted.life/donate. We're not going to be shy about it. Like, you guys, if you want us to keep putting out content, it's kind of a put up or shut up, put your money where your mouth is thing. And if you never give us a dime, that's okay too. We want to keep filling your brains with stuff that's going to equip you to be able to push back darkness, because that's why we're here. That's it.
So for the Line Within Us listeners out there, go subscribe, listen to it, and then I'm going to challenge you. Make some donations, support Kyle, what they're doing on Undaunted Life. It's unbelievable. It's changed my life. I tell you, it's been a blessing ever since I got connected and started following Kyle. So, check out those show notes. We'll have those links there. Kyle, thank you again, my brother. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
It's great. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yes, sir. You have a great day.
You too.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it'd be cool to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple, Spotify, Google, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcast isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their messages out to the world. Let's create something great together. Visit thelionwithin.us/buzz to let Buzzsprout know we sent you, and you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan. That's thelionwithin.us/buzz. All right, guys, that was an amazing conversation with Kyle. Definitely go check out the show notes. Tons of information there for you. The impact question I want to leave you with: are you sharp enough to sharpen iron? Kyle brought so much on how to build a godly and manly foxhole. And guys, this is not easy, but you know what? We are here at the Line Within Us to help you, to give you the resources, to know that you can do this, okay? So this is a big one. Make sure you share this with some other friends, okay? Please get it out there. Let the people know how impactful this was for you. So share that out, text that out to us. Go to thelinewithin.us to check out all our resources, the things we're building to help you all be the leaders you're predestined to be. Give us a 5-star rating, write a review. That really does help. And make today the day that you go out and unleash the lion within.